Welcome, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to Track 4, Palace 2. This talk is called Hunting in the Shadows, In-Depth Analysis of Escalated APT Attacks. And our four speakers are Fyodor, Birdman, PK, and Benson. And they're from Taiwan. So enjoy yourselves and listen and get ready for a good talk. Thanks.
Thanks. Hi. So today we're going to be talking about APT. How many people in the room don't know what APT stands for? Any hands? Well, if you don't, I've seen this book distributed yesterday. I think it's funky. You can go pick it up. Anyway, I think we'll move on. I'd briefly like to explain why we think our position. All of us are based, we live in Taiwan, and we do get to see things as they appear in Taiwan. There are particular reasons why Taiwan is interesting in terms of looking into target attacks. And then we will go through one of the groups that we roughly named, actually they named it themselves, but we gave them the name L Studio. And we'll show you what we found. We'll show you how they operate, and we'll show you some of the interesting findings on actual victims. So before we move on, I'd like to introduce ourselves. So we've got Benson here. Benson is my university.
I'm Benson.
Yeah, classmate. We've got Birdman.
Yeah.
He looks like a Birdman.
Hi, everyone.
Benson and Birdman, they basically run a company doing APT stuff. And we've got PK. PK and me, we both from academia. So we don't really work for a company, but we get to see some interesting traffic over the network in academic networks. Anyway, I reckon we move on. Before we start getting into APT thing, there were several reports coming out on APT last year and this year. And I think most of the reports were trying to do the finger pointing. Oh yeah, that's all the Chinese government trying to hack us. I think that's that's whenever it's over internet, you can't really tell who is actually or whose money are behind particular action. I can go and hire a guy in Guangdong or in China and go and collect data for me, but I don't work for Chinese government. I would probably working for Ukrainian mobster. And if you use the attribution technique, which for example was in Maiden report, where it's IP addresses, it's names, yada yada, then you would probably never figure out that the data that was collected by that guy would actually be going to Ukrainian mobs. So one thing which we'll try to avoid during this presentation, and we would probably prefer not to answer this question the attribution of these attacks. Obviously, there are you will see there's simplified Chinese in some of the screenshots, so you can probably know the nationality of the people who were operating particular software, but it doesn't mean that any particular government or unit or group is behind those attacks. And I don't think there's any good, reliable way of proving it. We can talk about this. So the history of target attacks in Taiwan has been has quite a few years. So this is one of the news which was in back in 2003. You can see the date here. There was one of the first outbreaks, or one of the first discoveries of the target attacks in Taiwan was discovered by a local scientific organization, and they linked the activity to the people operating those botnets out of Hubei and Fujian, which is basically just across the Chinese Sea from Taiwan. And their primary targets were high-tech companies and probably more related to industrial espionage rather than anything politically affiliated. Anyway, one thing that we've seen recently in Taiwan, there is a widespread escalation of different APT activities. and botnet activities in general. So I have special access to Plurk, and Plurk is basically something like Twitter, but like very popular in Taiwan. 60% of user base is within Taiwan. So what we've been seeing this year and last year, and there was a report by SecureWorks last year that Plurk and a few other social media networks are frequently used as a intermediate media, because you don't want to hardcode your IP address or domain name in your malware. You want to be more flexible. So we've seen a lot of this stuff like this. One of the variations. We can move to the next slide. So the Airleaks campaign, the first outbreak was initially published by SecureWorks. The whole purpose of basically using Plurk, it appears as a regular user posting messages. You get a serial number and encoded thing. What we had encoded here is basically an IP address and a port number for C2 server to connect to. And the malware itself, it would be, you can basically poll Plurk messages as XML. So they will be polling Plurk messages as XML and then connecting back to C2. But what we've seen this year, there was actually escalation of this activity operated by exactly the same group, and because I have internal access to the Plurk, so I could actually see that exactly the same IP addresses were used to manipulate those accounts. But this time it wasn't only Plurk, so it was also in Yahoo blog. There is a local Taiwan-based blog called Yam, and the whole thing changed slightly, but not that much. So they basically start posting just a bunch of text, and after a particular sequence of words, there would be a sequence of characters A and a sequence of characters B. So the sequence of characters A would actually be, again, the question?
Speak slower, please.
Okay, yeah, I can. So basically, the sequence of characters A is an encoded IP address, and the sequence of characters B would be the port. And some of the blog posts would be as big as 1 kilobyte of text, but within the text there would be a sentence would start with a word like yada yada thing, and then that's what malware would be looking for. What we particularly noticed that the same IP addresses which manipulated or which were used to control these accounts were also periodically following up the Plurk account which belonged to DPP, which is in Taiwan, the same as in the US, there are 2 political parties. So DPP is basically the ruling party. Oh, the opposition party. The opposition party. So apparently this activity is related to politics, but we can't tell clearly what are they after. Anyway.
So I like to add that these win the competition award string is actually hard coded inside the malware. So if you happen to collect the malware and then you decode it, you will find this win the competition award is hard coded inside. So the malware try to connect to the plug, try to connect to the blog to always get the latest C2 server IP and port numbers.
Yeah, if you have access to VirusTotal, for example, you can start looking for the samples using Yara rules. Anyway, roughly that's what the second evolution of the Yarochki malware looks like. We gave it the name version 2.0. They would be posting sequences of messages, and that's roughly the IP addresses which they were operating from. As you see, there is no IP address from China. There is Taiwan, there is United States, there is Hong Kong, there is Korea. We didn't print the IP address, but if you, because the list is longer, but if you're curious, we can share it as well. Anyway, another interesting thing, the activity related to this C2 control, they had to hardcode particular usernames. So by blocking those usernames, I would basically make their network inefficient. So what we realized, as of this year, they actually came up with another interesting thing. They started creating random accounts, and they would start commenting to popular accounts on Plurk, responding to the accounts. And the comments would contain like typical Chinese or English text, but there are characters in between which encode a message for the malware bot. And this is, I think, actually a very smart move, because they're not dependent on any particular user's accounts anymore. Like at one day, I blocked over 100 accounts operated by these guys. Next morning, I'm waking up and I'm seeing another 100 of accounts. Like not all of the accounts used at the same time, but because I can trace them by IP address, so I can see what they are doing. Another thing which is like very widespread in Taiwan, in most of the government organizations and technology sector, like the APT, like the spear phishing thing, is like so common. You get to see this every day, and we have like a graph to show.
So these are all APT emails, and then they just arrive government agency on daily basis. As you can see, agreements, meeting notes, regulations, contacts, questionnaire, attendee list, even your fine tickets. So
Yeah.
you get a speeding or even complaints, member list, conference slides. So, and all these emails, as you can see, are in traditional Chinese characters. So APT are really targeting emails localized in your local language.
The guys basically do their homework before they send an email. They try to learn about the organization. They try to learn about the person who, what position he's in, what meetings he's expecting, and the topic of the email would pretty much match the guy's expectation. So unless you like were able to evaluate this email before you open it, you would not really, like, it would not trigger anything suspicious. It's not like, you know, this like typical spam where you get like, oh yeah, you want the price. Like here, like they basically focus on the area of a particular person, so it doesn't stand out.
So in the next slide, we'll give you a look and feel what's the frequency like that you will receive APT emails on daily basis. It's like 48 APT emails per week. So for a tier 1 government agency in Taiwan, you can expect like 48 APT emails per week. No, this is not per user, per agency, per site.
Usually they would be like targeting quite a few individuals within an organization, but it would be a same like breed or like variation of the emails. So it's similar or the same message would be sent to like a few particular like users, probably the ones at key positions, but at the same time.
So if you look at the volume, APT only account a very tiny percentage of legitimate traffic, but they are like lethal weapons. Once you have it, you have these lethal malware inside your organization. And the red bar down here is on a weekly basis. So every week there's activity. You see a drop here. It's not a failure of the device, but they are on vacation.
You know, you know what the 1st of May is, right? It's a Labor Day, and it's a long holiday in some particular countries.
And then they make up the progress after they finish the vacation. This is why earlier Fyodor shared that Taiwan is really a very good place to study APT. It's like an APT playground. It's very easy to collect APT samples, and then everything is so new and then fresh. When you try to look up on VirusTotal, you get 0 detection rate, but then we know that this is APT because the email context looks pretty dodgy. So let's start with this one. We picked this particular group, Hello Studio, because of some interesting attributes. Later we will share. There are so many APT campaigns in Taiwan. Hello Studio is only one of it. Hello Studio is not even the biggest, but it does have some interesting things that deserve our time to study deeper. And this is one of the typical APT emails that comes with the Hello Studio APT campaign. And as you can see, this one is pretty recent. It's only a few weeks ago, earlier this month. And then the detection rate on VirusTotal is not high.
Here. And most of the detection here would be actually just a generic like suspicious document because it uses some like patterns that match. It's more likely to be a false positive.
And sometimes even clean. So you can really rely on antivirus for fighting against APT. I think all of you know that already, as Fyodor asked you earlier, and everyone seems to know APT. So you don't have to read that dummy book. Actually, when I take a look at that APT dummy, here, so like I feel quite dummy after reading that book. This is actually the whole APT campaign operating in Taiwan. Each block represents a group. And Hello Studio is only one of the group running in Taiwan. It's not the biggest. That's Hello Studio. Hello Studio is located there.
So basically, if you look into the APT like life cycle, there would be a weapon, an initial like exploit a document, and then there would be like binaries which get installed and run and operate. So here we see actual weapons, and here we see actual like binaries which get installed on the machines.
But Hello Studio gives us a lot of fun, so we like to share with you guys here in Black Hat. Some of these are include that Hello Studio contains a lot of debug screens to help us find more malwares that's related to Hello Studio family. And also Hello Studio has some unique design, such as later on we will share like host label, generator tag, and then also that we are able to found out the backend center of Hello Studio, which also give us a lot of fun.
Yeah, there are basically we have some data from the backend data center that is used to operate the Hello Studio APT botnet, and it gives us visibility on the scope and the victims, and I think that's what makes the talking about this particular group interesting.
Yeah, typically previously you see reports on compromised C2 servers, but for Hello Studio we were able to see operators. So these attackers, how they operate these compromised data, compromised machines at their backend data centers. So not only the front-end malwares, but you also get to see the backend console malwares they use. So this is one of the analysis report that we leverage in analyzing these kind of malware. We leverage a sandbox. Automatic sandbox help us understand the Hello Studio malware behaviors. And then also the C2 servers that they leverage, how they infect machines, and then the binary they dropped. And with the binary they dropped, we will decompile it and then try to see the PDB strings inside so that later on we can correlate that, oh, they belong to the Hello Studio family. So for example, they have some very unique strings inside the debugging symbols.
Yeah, and pay attention on this keyword because it will come up on the next slide.
And then we have more and more similar malwares, and then we keep on seeing a list. So it becomes like a keywords for this particular malware type.
Yeah, and that's how the communication would look like if you look into like proxy server logs, for example. That's what they would be sending over the wire. So what is Elise? They apparently, like this particular group, they have a love for fast cars. So every clone of the malware they have like a word which is basically a name for like one of the fast car models, like the shiny ones.
So we are very envious because we don't have that stylish kind of cars. Yeah. And then this is, when we study deeper with these malware, we want to find out what's so unique about this malware, and then we find out, wow, this is really something pretty cool. First of all,
yeah, like let me ask a question. Like when you look at this thing, can you tell me how they send the data to the backend center? Can you spot the thing? Yeah, that's it. The cookie looks dodgy.
Dodgy, yes. So that's the cool part. That's why it caught our eyes. Otherwise, as we mentioned, there's so many malware in Taiwan. Why do we want to study this one? So the cookie part is very dodgy. And then we decrypt it. We decrypt it, and then we found out how we can find more of their similar member. Because we decrypt it, we found out a very unique signature for this Hello Studio family.
Yeah, and also it's a quite sophisticated encryption algorithm they use. Like, can you look at this? Like, they use share the random number generator, but they always initialize it with a static number. So it always generates the static sequence of numbers, which is basically their encryption key. How smart is that?
So when we use these Java rules, and then we found out lots of similar Hello Studio families. So we find more sports cars. Now we find Evora.
Yeah, Evora is basically just another very cute, shiny car. Like, looks like that.
So this is the second car, and then we find more cars. We find their whole garage. So we have Lotus, we have ST Creator, we have Emissary, we have Convict 007. It's a factory of cyber weapons, all manufactured by Hello Studio.
And then those cyber weapons, they are operated by different brands of backend software. So in order to talk to these bots, you would have to use the Cyber Shuttle backend software. In order to talk to this set of binaries, you would have to use the other one, which they call themselves Broderna. In order to talk to this group of binaries, you would have to use IS-Linker. And the interesting thing is, even though all of these families, they use different protocols to communicate, different encoding methods, they usually share the same infrastructure, the same machines. The same machines would be probably compromised by multiple installations of like this software, and they could run simultaneously this backend and this backend, like while talking to them. One thing which I would like to ask, so we would like to call this thing a chicken farm. Who can tell me why would the chicken word would come up here? Well, close, yeah. So basically, in Chinese slang, chicken is a slang word for a bot, a zombie. So whatever you call in English a zombie, that's a very common way to call it in Chinese as a chicken. That's why if you start looking into domain names that people use to control their botnets, the domain names would sometimes be related to the chicken factories. Anyway. So if we look at how the Hello Studio group operates, actually, that's what I already mentioned. So you have a bunch of machines being compromised here. These machines would be talking over HTTP, or a variation of Elise would actually use a blog to find where the C2 server is. And then there would be HTTP requests going back to the backend platform. The backend platform is basically stationed in data center. There would be different variation depending on what kind of malware they have. And then the operators, they would be remotely logging into these machines, so you can actually see their user IDs, passwords sometimes. And they would be sending comments to the boxes and collecting the responses. And like this would be like a different protocol, this would be a different protocol, this would be a different protocol. Here they have XML encoding when they transform the data. Here they would use JSON and so on.
So I just like to have a quick recap. In early days, we only find a list. So in APT emails, all the malware you can only find a list. You never get to find Evora or ST Creator. These are all second phase malware. They never get delivered through phishing emails. They are all second phase weapons. But then with the usage of finding similar, using Java rules, we were able to find out the whole garage. And then all these Elise, Evora, ST Creator, and also Config 007, these are all front-end malware. They are not a back-end. These front-end malware means that if you compromise certain C2 servers, you probably will be able to find out some of these. Or if you get to do incident forensic on the victim's machines, you will be able to find out some of these malwares. But you will never get to find malware like Cyber Shadow or Borderna or IS Linker, because these are the backend malware. They only locate on the data center. So this is the interesting part that caught our eyes when we studied Hello Studio. And no matter how sophisticated these weapons are, they all communicate over the same HTTP infra. Even though they talk different protocols slightly a bit differently, but they all merge together on the same cloud infra on these APT campaign, Hello Studio campaign. So earlier we mentioned these Hello Studio, they not only have so many shining weapons, the sports cars, but they also have very cool designs such as host label and generator tag. Now we introduce you the host label.
So basically the host label is a unique identifier for a particular build of a binary that they want to push to a particular target. So that's why as you like look at the name, it has a string MOA. So what would that stand for? Can someone like give me a hint? Ministry of
That's not a hint. Okay, so what Fyodor is saying is that they already give victims a label. It's like they want to put this victim inside their libraries. They already give it a naming already. And not only that, this one is also a date. They compromise this site. And not only that, they also put a notation what weapons they use to compromise the victims. So they have a very good naming for their museum. But then this is also a fun part about Hello Studio, because we get to study who they have been abusing, what are the compromised sites they have been abusing because of these host labels. Secondly is the generator tag. The generator tag is for the malware. So when they manufacture these weapons, they also give a tag for these weapons. The KS stands for the name of the weapon. The DOD stands for the slightly different functionality of these particular weapons. So for example, these weapons can be executed in low privilege. This weapon can execute it as a Windows service. So not only a particular weapons, but how these weapons can be executed in different environments. So they also give a tag.
It is expected to be executed in a target environment.
And also when it was created. So they give label for the victim, they also give label for the malware they manufacture. So everything is very well organized so that later on they can easily identify compromised victims, compromised site.
So basically a typical workflow would be the guy, like the owner, he generates like a horse label, he generates the generation tag, and then he produces the documents which he would be mailing, the documents with the exploits which he would be mailing to the target. So each of the documents would be containing the actual expected target and the software marks which we just mentioned.
And this is what Fyodor mentioned earlier, why chicken farm.
Yeah, the G here basically because that's the pronunciation of this character. That's why this cross mapping.
Yeah, it's called 漏鸡.
So in traditional botnet model, it's very simple, right? You have your chicken, you have a C2 server, you have a guy like operating it. That's not how this guy operating. They have like multiple chickens and they have a very complex management problem. So I think they're actually good at it.
We noticed that there are 25 farmers in this chicken farm. But then they raise more than 5,800 chickens across 30 countries, leveraging 4 different botnet protocols. This is also surprising to us because we used to think that one APT campaign always uses only one APT botnet protocols. But for this Hello Studio, no, 4. But they didn't lose control of the victims. They're still able to access the 5,800 chickens. Very good farmers. And then they have been active since 2007. Still very active today. This is why we wonder, this is why we say that the previous client-server architecture for that botnet architecture definitely cannot fit this chicken farm size. So all these 25 farmers, they leverage automatic systems. This is why they can manage so many chickens.
Yeah, this is a screenshot of the backend management software where they get a list of the nodes they manage, the commands that get executed on the nodes, and the result of the command. So they can pull files, push files, execute commands, and do lots of other functionality.
This one is crazy. SQ script. It means that when they attack a machine, they don't do it manually. They do it in a script. So when you spend hours or days to remove a malware, they only spend minutes to come back.
High automation.
Yeah, and then they can do it in batch. So they can come back and then compromise several machines at one time. And we're going to demonstrate this to you because that's exactly how they do.
Basically, we obtained a log which records the commands that they push into the machine. And then we, from the log file, we basically reconstructed their execution sequence. And I think what is interesting here, pay attention how they actually execute the commands. They're not, they poke around the machine, trying to find out the date and where particular files are there. But once they are there, they actually they use add command to schedule execution of commands for, instead of actually directly typing the command, they do it through the scheduler.
So by this moment, they already come back. So they only spend minutes to come back, but then you have to spend tens of the list to recover it.
And you can see the guy basically looks up the time first, then he schedules the execution within the next minute. So it's it could be the reason the reason why they do this is obfuscation, but so far to us it's not very clear. Maybe you have an idea. But yeah, let's
so not only that, a lot of these functions change C2 servers, change farmers, so you can also take day off as a farmer. So very well organized chicken farm. So this is how they really run these large enterprise.
So basically they would have a group of people connecting to the data center that runs the backend software that communicates to the C2 machines, and the infect machines would be talking back to the C2 servers. These guys would be talking to the C2 servers as well. And if the guy would be pushing a command, that would be the workflow. So command would be pushed to the C2 thing. When this guy calls back, the command would be executed. And the same way, whenever they get the result, this guy send the result back. Then whenever this guy fetches the result, that's when the guy gets to see the thing. So we actually have a timing based on the log file that we were able to obtain. We can actually reconstruct the timing, when what kind of activity was done on these machines, which brought also very interesting results, which we'll share with you shortly. So
most importantly, where are the chickens? So we have been talking about the chicken farms for quite a long time, but where are the chickens?
Yeah, I think the most important thing here to understand who are the actual victims, the chickens, and how they've been operated. This is basically the breakdown, like from the log file of the activities, we were able to reconstruct the IP addresses of the machines which were compromised. So that's basically the breakdown of the most common targets. The majority of machines which were compromised is actually within Taiwan. And like, yeah, here you can see the machines, and we associate them with the country based on the IP address. Then you can see that the second big volume of the machines which was compromised is inside the United States, but there are like many others. There are Canada, there is United Kingdom, there is Holland, there is Russia, there is Ukraine, there are even a few machines in China. We believe like this thing comes from the point because some of the machines were laptops, so the guy actually like would be sitting in Taiwan, maybe he works for Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and then he has to take a trip to China. And once he lands, he opens his laptop, connects to local telecom, and calls back. So the IP address that we would be seeing would be actually IP address coming out of China, for example. And yeah, if you can go back to the slide, I'll just. And another thing which is very interesting, we'll cover it in a bit of detail. You will see that some people are actually very international. They are often in Taiwan, but sometimes they coming down to US. So you can see the machine actually like the same machine would be popping up like sometimes from Taiwan IP ranges, sometimes from United States IP range, sometimes from Canadian IP ranges. That means basically the guy has type of job which makes him like traveling around these particular countries. So if you remember the horse label, like yeah, if you go to the slide, like that's basically a bunch of horse labels which we were able to reconstruct from the logs. And if you look at this, like you can actually get to see what kind of organizations the guys were after. And you can see there is like Ministry of Foreign Affairs, there are institutions, there are Ministry of like Energy, bunch of things.
So you can see like a lot of these are government agencies. You see a lot of these are the leading think tanks in Taiwan. And then you also see a lot of media press in Taiwan.
Yeah, and pay attention to this, like this Apple, but this is not the American Apple. This is a Taiwanese Apple. In Taiwan we have one of the biggest newspapers called Apple. So of course these guys were also after the media. So the machines we had, which had the Apple prefix, were mostly compromised within this newspaper office.
And this one is interesting. We take a particular look of who are the 25 owners. So this is the graph. The 25 owners and their relationship with the machines they control. So this is the graph of the 25 owners and then the machines they control.
Yeah, so we have like people here, and that's the machines which they operate. And then you can see that like some of the machines actually shared by multiple users. Like these machines, sometimes this guy would be like pushing comments to them, getting the data. Sometimes this guy would be pushing comments, getting the data. And another thing which we noticed that the way these two guys would be operating with these machines, they would not be using the same type of backend system each of the time. Sometimes they would be using A, sometimes they would be using B. But they're communicating to the same machines and use the same credential to authenticate to the backend system before they can start the operation.
So for this particular farmer, he's actually in charge of the media press. So all of his chickens belongs to the media.
Yeah, that's the Taiwanese Apple thing.
And the other one is the government leading media press in Taiwan. And then he also shared control for the political parties. In other words, he not only controls medias, but he also shares some computers that belongs to the political parties in Taiwan, the KMT.
Yeah, and another thing that we get to see is like, you see this bunch of machines compromised, but you also can see like how those people like travel around the world, because once they come to Caesars, they open their laptop, they connect to the internet. The chicken farm will know that they right now at Caesars in United States. So you get to see like people, for example, these machines. This guy is like, he's mainly based in Taiwan, right? but like he travels to France a lot. So probably like the nature of his job would have something to do with France and maybe Canada. Then there are a few other guys here, they are based out of Taiwan, but they would be going to United States a lot. And so I think we'll get like another screenshot with the thing.
So if I'm actually based in, for example, if I'm based in US, I wouldn't like this guy to visit me because when he comes, the farmers is also here.
And we made another interesting discovery. So basically we can see that like particular farmers, they mainly operate machines within Taiwan, but they also do operation on other things. But aside from that, there is an interesting time-based correlation. So what we did, we took the timestamps when they were issuing the commands operating all these chicken farm machines over on period of 3 years from 2010 to until now. And we recorded an hour of the day when they were operating particular machine. So what you will see that if you correlate it to particular time zone, that's when the guy sleeps. He's like very inactive, like maybe he has urgent things to do at night sometimes, but most of the time he's not so active. Then he starts his job roughly 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. 10 o'clock he's the most productive guy. Then there is a lunchtime. 12 to 2, he goes gets the lunch box. And then he gets some work done in afternoon, and he slowly like is getting ready for the nap. I think that the timing correlation basically shows that the guys take this as a full-time 9 to 5 job with particular emergencies. And another thing which we discovered in the data that we had is quite a few machines which they compromised were installed on virtual machines, either VMware or VirtualBox. Is anyone here from the HoneyNet project? No one? Really? Because I was hoping that maybe you could recognize that some of these machines are actually yours. And if we look closer, you can see that like the sample they were obtaining, there was one machine or one virtual machine running on an Indian IP, but the same sample was shared between these two guys, and the same sample was executed on one of the machines in the US. This, I think, also a very interesting intelligence. It's not only we can see who they compromised, but we also can see who else is looking at these guys. And as the last share, we would just like to share like a couple of the tools that we frequently use. One thing that been popping up, we've got this sandbox engine. It's free. If you want, go ahead. There is a URL in our presentation. You can go upload your binary. You'll get the report. What the cool thing about this particular API is that what you will get as a result is well, automatically generate Yara rules. So like you might probably have to correct it to make it more accurate, but at least you get something for the start. And then you can reuse your Yara rules with a bunch of tools. We built a few and we released them open source. So this is our Git repository. One thing, if you're running like a proxy server in your company network, and you'd like to get visibility of what's going through your network, you basically can use a CICAP server. You can most of the proxies support ICAP. Put the Yara rules. You should be able to start picking up if you are part of the chicken farm. Another thing that we do is like if you're not running your proxy thing, you get like just raw TCP traffic. We also have another tool that basically dumps the traffic and runs the Yara rules on the top of that. And aside from that, there are a few other cool tools. These tools are not done by us, but I think this is done by AOL team. Very handy tool if you want to preserve traffic that goes through your network, because discovering a chicken farm in your network is not one-day effort. Sometimes you will discover like suspicious requests like months after that. and you want to have your data so you can actually go and search what was going on at the time. And there are like a few other that basically integrate Yara into different protocols. Things that like I think interesting to pay attention on is like passive DNS I think is a gold mine for this kind of activities. And it's not only like you would be looking for domain names when they do C2 thing, but things that like we found particularly suspicious, for example, in our academic network, that we get connections from particular like ADSL IP addresses, and whenever like a connection comes in, our service tries to do like a reverse lookup for that IP. And I think basically looking into this reverse lookups in your passive DNS could get you some suspicious things as well. And aside from that, we also have a passive HTTP thing, and for this particular malware group, we actually did find their activity in our academic network through by running analysis on the passive HTTP traffic. I think we got screenshots. So what they have here is like their user agent is usually fixed and very suspicious, and plus the URL is like very common. So once you have your data preserved, you can actually start running queries and getting that stuff. So I reckon we more or less done, and I think we can make some conclusions. Quite an interesting infrastructure. A lot of machines were compromised. Targets like mainly in Taiwan, but also you can see their farm is international. And meanwhile, we'll play the video and we can start taking questions or comments, or you can start throwing your shoes here. Sure.
So,
快点 demo， 快点先 demo。
yeah, before we answer the questions, we actually have a last demos that we'd like to give you guys to take a look what's inside the data center. I think you guys might be interested because we never seen this out there previously. So we log into the data center and then we make this video tape for you guys.
Yeah, but meanwhile, like to answer your question, I think you can see what targets they compromise, so you can kind of make conclusions who they after, but there is no definite proof. Like there is no banking transaction like that tells you exactly who these guys were paid by. So, and honestly, if you look at this as like intelligence operation, if I was Russian intelligence and I wanted everyone to think that it's Chinese doing all the bad stuff, I would rent machines in China, I would put my commands with simplified Chinese, and I would use all the tools that have the simplified Chinese interface. That's like, it's cat and mouse game. So like, if I know how you would be like tracing me, then I would come up with ways to make you think that what I want you to think.
So as you can see that this data center is running, and then it's really lots of workloads there. So the operators are checking in and checking out, manipulating all these chickens.
Yeah, here we have the machine names. There's the actual like actions.
Making sure that all the chickens are still accessible. If not, then they will execute the script and then immediately regain the controls within minutes with the latest malware that no antivirus can detect. So these farmers, they don't have to worry about the malwares to be detected. It's not their job. Their job is to make sure that all these chickens stays online.
All right. Do we have any other questions? Yeah.
Basically, I haven't noticed before how this prime malware ends up in the machine. It's pure phishing, but are they using any type of computer bay like in Microsoft Office, or is just relying on the people clicking whatever they have?
Yes, exploit. So APT, the beauty of APT is that they have the resource to use exploits. Of course, you can also not use exploits, but when the time that you need exploits, these adversaries, they have a resource to use exploits. Yes, we often find 0 days in Taiwan. Yeah. How can we tell it's 0 days? We found out some shell codes inside these documents, but we cannot recognize the CV numbers. Yes.
Hi, have you seen Al Studio use any watering hole attacks, or are they solely using spearfishing there?
For Aero Studio, no, but for other APT campaign, yes.
Yeah, there is a question.
Sorry?
那真是怎么拿到的？
Yeah, with forensics and also some luck.
It fell down off the back of the truck.
That's why we say Taiwan is really a good playground.
Other questions? Yeah.
Attachment is more accounts like more than 80%. URL, of course. For AP adversaries, what we will say that they are really lazy. So they just keep on sending emails. They keep on sending, and then one of the guy in your organization, he definitely will click on it. Okay, very good questions. If sandbox is the weapons that you want to equip for APT, from the adversary point of view, they love you to do that. Because these are, for example, even in this Lotus family, they already have the weapons that can bypass the sandbox. And they just don't execute inside the sandbox. But because sandbox is your decision maker, so sandbox will simply say that, oh, these payload or these attachment is clean. So they love you to use sandbox because it's very easy for them to spot that you use sandbox.
Yeah. Another question.
So we feel that sandbox is the solution when you don't have a solution. It means that you don't know how to analyze them. That's why you want to, okay, why don't we just try to open it? If you know how to analyze them, for example, you are 3 letters agency, you know, you have the intelligence to catch the terrorist. Before they reach the before they reach the border, you already know how to catch them. You don't use sandbox to catch the bad guy.
Yeah, we have another question there.
I think the question is, you mentioned the sandbox, the malware can be sandbox aware, right? But the thing is, for the exploit to succeed, they have so many constraints. You will be, if in my sandbox, I just detect exploit behavior itself, I can still detect it, right?
That's possible, but sandbox has, I like to share with you a lot of my feelings about sandbox. One thing is that business logic-wise, can you really try to emulate the user activity inside the sandbox? For example, I have a URL link that says approve my vacation. What would the sandbox do? Would sandbox try to visit that link or not? That's my questions. If they do, then that's against the business logic because you are approving my vacation inside the sandbox while the end user has no awareness of it.
Right.
Reset my password inside the sandbox, delete my account inside the sandbox. That's the business logic side. Also, for malware, for example, it's executable. Nothing to do with the exploit, only executable only. The executable just hard-coded saying that I just don't execute inside VMware, don't execute inside VirtualBox. Then absolutely it will not execute inside sandbox. Yeah.
There is another problem with sandbox, like the user interaction. So if the payload requires any user interaction before it can continue, like there is no way to do this thing automatically with sandbox.
And also one cool thing is, for example, like encrypted document. It's nothing to do with document exploit. But before you open this document, it asks you for password. Then what will sandbox do? The sandbox does not know how to enter the password. The sandbox will just say, well, probably this is clean.
Well, this is a good example of the user interaction thing. Like, if you send password in an email, you say like, this is your password, open it. Like, only human can actually do the proper action.
So we really feel that the attacker spends so little resource on attacking you, but you spend so much resource on your sandbox, customizing it, and then you have hundreds of sandbox, and yet you does not reach a good coverage in picking it up.
Just curious, when you were analyzing who the chickens are, did you find that network companies and security companies were major targets?
Not security companies, but
networking
some of
company.
the technology companies.
Yes.
So have you been involved in victim notification in these cases?
I only heard vacation.
Well,
Victim
not in this particular case, but I've seen cases when a particular person in the company was on vacation and her computer was periodically calling back. That's
Not vacation, notification. Of
victim
victims.
notification.
Sorry?
就是有没有通知那个被入侵的那些？
Oh,
That
no,
became
no,
accurate
no.
as well.
Yeah, because it's really causing problem to the victims. It's not really helping the victims, but causing problem to them, because they might suspect that we are the attacker. Yeah. For the IOC, because at this moment we feel that this is how we feel. These should belong to everyone, but we don't know how to share this, because this is very troublesome for these victims. So when we publish this, there's privacy issues that really concerns us. Yeah.
Well, if you can give us keywords which are related to your organizations, we can run it through the list and we can tell you whether you're in or not. Or IP ranges or autonomous systems, that would work as well.
Yeah.
We've got email address here, I think, on the last slide. Any more questions? Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.